I'm Charlie, I'm 34 and we live in St Albans. This is Rupert. He is a little over 10 months old now and he was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy type 1 when he was 8 weeks old. As you can see, Rupert loves his farm animals and you're going to speak for yourself. And he just loves generally playing. He's very chatty and he's started to read books with us, and he loves just closing the book, don't you? So we've got lots of pop-up books and he's forever just tugging at them, and I think it's just any way of sort of getting him to move. It's almost intentional physio, which is terrible to say, but we do a lot of playtime that's making him move muscles to get stronger, but hopefully he enjoys it. He's a very happy baby. So Rupert has spinal muscular atrophy type 1. He was born with a deletion in his SMN1 gene. He has 2 copies of the backup SMN2 gene, which is why he is able to still move around at the point of diagnosis. And Zolgensma gene therapy treated the root cause of the deletion in his SMN1 gene. Rupert is our first child. It took us 4 years to have a child after multiple rounds of failed IVF and miscarriages. At the time, my husband and I felt that there must be a reason why. We were both well and all checks showed that there were no issues with either of us. And during the pregnancy, it was never flagged that perhaps we should do any checks on Rupert. So following his diagnosis, we were really shocked, because no one in our family has any history or suffers from any genetic condition. It's incredibly difficult to still convey how, as a family, we felt receiving this news. It was a condition that we hadn't heard of before. The treatment, Zolgensma gene therapy, wasn't available, and so it was very uncertain about what his future would look like. So Rupert was born at full term and the labour was normal and his checks were fine. It was around week 4 or 5 that we noticed that his silent reflux had become really bad, and that he was becoming increasingly floppy, which seemed strange for the symptoms of silent reflux. So at his 6-week GP check, the doctor said that she felt that his movements were normal. And when we looked back at videos, we didn't agree. We wanted to seek a second opinion. So we saw a paediatrician who again just thought that the silent reflux was perhaps causing some of his other symptoms. A week later, our health visitor, who had seen him for a second time, was able to see that the difference was really remarkable, that he was increasingly floppy, and she suggested that I take him to see the paediatrician again so that he can see what he was like a week later. And that was when he became very concerned and asked us to see a neurologist. At our neurologist appointment, when Rupert was about 7 weeks old, he mentioned to us about spinal muscular atrophy. And at that point, we went straight online and started researching what were the options. At the time, and this is in May 2021, there was only one treatment available, nusinersen, also known as Spinraza, but there wasn't much available online about the treatment. And when we looked at spinal muscular atrophy, it came up to say that type 1 children wouldn't survive past the age of 2 and that there was no cure. So for us, being very new into this condition and this diagnosis, our world just fell apart, and we weren't aware of how important every day was for his condition and his deterioration. So when we first heard about the possible treatments, and at the time it was nusinersen, Spinraza and Zolgensma gene therapy, we had a million questions to the doctors. At Great Ormond Street, they made it clear that there was going to be a team of specialists to help Rupert, whatever he was able to have in terms of treatment, or if he wasn't suitable for treatment, palliative care. So from a neuromuscular perspective, they told us about Zolgensma. It was incredibly new, and there was some fantastic case studies and patients in the US and across Europe who were really thriving after gene therapy. From a treatment perspective, we took to the internet to find out a lot about it, and that's where we found out that there had been clinical trials and there were patients in the US who were approaching about 5 years old, and we were able to see that there were potentially a really, really positive outcome for Rupert if he was eligible to receive the treatment. Go on then, you go reach him. Go reach him. Good boy. Good boy. Let's go all the way over. Good boy, lovely reaching. Head, head. Good boy. Keep turning, keep turning, keep turning. Well done, Rupert. When we received his diagnosis, we were transferred to Great Ormond Street, who told us a lot about the potential treatments available, so Spinraza, nusinersen and Zolgensma, that there's a lot more information available online. I think that some of the charities, SMA UK for example, have really raised awareness and helped to spread the word. They've also helped that it's not just what you can find online, but there are also forums, there's Facebook groups, there's Instagram profiles where lots of people are explaining their experience of their child's condition and the journey that they've gone through. We've built up a community from this, and we're able to all learn from each other, because as part of the condition, there's so many different symptoms, and the symptoms are on such a varying scale of severity, which means that the way that the child is treated is so different from one child to another. Around awareness of the gene therapy, Zolgensma, I think that's been improved a lot in recent months. I think that for us, the first point of call would always be to go to the charities and the hospital, ideally the hospital who is dosing if possible, and a lot of that is now available online. We were incredibly lucky that because Rupert was strong enough, he was eligible to receive Zolgensma gene therapy. We took that really difficult decision that Zolgensma, even though we needed to wait an additional week for treatment, Zolgensma, treating the root cause, the SMN1 deletion that Rupert was born without, was something that we felt was going to be right for him. We first took to SMA UK, who's a charity in the UK who have helped and are continuing to help all families affected by SMA, and they were incredibly helpful. They told us about other families who we might want to reach out to. They spoke to us about the possible treatments, and they had a lot of information available on their website. For us, the charity really helped, and our hospitals were also fantastic. Rupert had Zolgensma, which is a gene therapy, when he was 11 weeks old at Evelina Hospital in London. He was then on a high dose of steroids. He was monitored with bloods every week to check that his liver was functioning and responding well to gene therapy. During that time, it was a case of making him as comfortable as possible, trying to live a normal life and get him as strong as he could be from a respiratory perspective, eating as well as movement. So we did a lot of physio. We were working a lot on his swallow. The speech and language team at Great Ormond Street were really helpful to assess what was safe for him to drink. He was still too young to have any weaning. And knowing that he was able to come off his feeding tube, which he had when he was having gene therapy and for the 2 weeks after, it really meant that we were able to start living a more normal life. And he was getting stronger and using his throat for his feeds. Every child's affected in a different way. And for Rupert, he's very strong. We are very, very grateful and blessed that he is very strong internally. It was his physical mobility that was incredibly affected by his condition. Arm up. Come on in. Good boy. Head needs to go over the arm. Go on, push, push. Free this arm. Go on. Yes, good boy. And now push. Push the head. Push. Push the head. Well done. Well done. Good boy. And to do that has taken months and months. It's really important for us to just take a step back and take Rupert at the pace that he needed to go at. So it was very, very difficult, more for us to process, that his treatment was going to be long-term. This gene therapy wasn't a one-time fix and he was now thriving. It was going to be a very lifelong journey. We were advised that Zolgensma can take a year to filter through the body and for any changes to be seen. And so we were naturally having to be very cautious with him. Also during a pandemic, we were really limiting his exposure to other children and therefore classes and things. So he wasn't getting the opportunity to perhaps see other children move and to move himself. Since treatment, he has increased his mobility and his strength. His coordination is so much better. So he's incredibly dexterous with his fingers, and he's able to hold, you know, multiple objects in both hands. And looking against a typical child's development, we're able to monitor how he's progressing, and his fine motor skills, he's doing really, really well. Since treatment, he has become really a lot more mobile. He is cognitively really well, so that's been developing really, really nicely, and he is eating a lot more. So all of the things really that the doctors told us that Zolgensma should help with, it has helped. Zolgensma gene therapy has given us our child. So for us, it's given him a lifeline. Zolgensma he's thriving, and he's now eating independently. He is sleeping as a normal child would who doesn't suffer from SMA, and he is starting to move and become more independent. He's also cognitively developing along with children his age. And for us, it's just incredible to see. And I think it's incredibly rewarding because this treatment has allowed him to become the person that he is today. And for that, we'll be eternally grateful to the NHS for giving our son this lifeline. There needs to be slightly greater understanding and awareness of the symptoms so that families aren't battling to get a diagnosis and to be taken seriously, because every day matters if your child has spinal muscular atrophy. Cognitively, he is all there and he's developing really well. So we hope that he will be able to attend school, attend nursery, and be able to flourish with other children of all abilities. We are really fortunate that Rupert can live in both worlds and experience the benefits of having special needs and also of being able to be in potentially schools with able-bodied and minded children. Our hopes for him are that he can be as independent as possible. We are trying to teach him how to move and to communicate so that he can be independent and not become frustrated. And I think if we can continue that as he gets older, because he is only 10 months old at the moment, then I think that he will have an incredibly happy life.